Hi, this is Rai, and I am a professor of business here in Da Nang in Vietnam. And I've lived here for a little bit more than a year. And we're here to do a reaction video to Expat Nam, who is making a video about living here in Da Nang. He's been here a year as well. And we'll see how it goes. Let's get it. Hi, for those of you new to my channel, I am a professor of business, as I mentioned. I've lived in 5 countries. Vietnam is going to be my sixth. I speak 5 languages, and I have equal experience in business and education, training and development, but what I love the most is traveling. Okay, so let's get this.
Cooler day today here in Da Nang, Vietnam. I'm just heading down to My Khe Beach, my favorite spot. I'm going to turn right down the bottom here, show you guys what it's like on the beach in February 2023, end of the month, last day of February today. And today's video is going to be about pros and cons of living in Da Nang, Vietnam in 2023.
Okay, so the video starts out, he's walking into the beach in the My Khe Beach. It's pronounced My Khe Beach. And for me, this is, the weather looks kind of gloomy, right? It's not as bright, it's not as sunny, it's not like beach that you would expect. But for me, living here, this is the perfect kind of weather because it's not too sunny, but it's not rainy. So you're not gonna get burnt by the sun, but you also won't get wet. So I've learned, like, living here, this is the perfect kind of weather where you think it's gonna rain, but it's really not. And it's bright enough, but it's not hot. So for me personally, I've grown to like this weather here in Da Nang. Okay, before we start, you saw there the little round boats that the Vietnamese use. At first, I found this kind of weird because, like, I thought it'd be hard to float in them and whatnot. But actually, it's kind of ingenious because I found out that these boats are designed in such a way that the boat can tilt forward and the fishermen can get as close as possible to the fish, and it helps them catch more fish. So ever since I learned that, I had more respect for these boats instead of like confusion. Okay, so those are the boats here in Vietnam.
So as you can see beside me, folks, the waves are really picking up today. We've had like maybe a week or so of beautiful weather, and then the weather's turned again. It's about 22 degrees today, which I quite like, nice and cool. But it's pretty kind of overcast, and the sea's a little bit too rough to go swimming at the moment. So it's okay though, because I can walk on the beach, it's not too hot, and it's great. Good weather for exercising. So what are some of the pros and the cons of living in Da Nang in 2023? How's it compared to the mega cities like Saigon and to a lesser extent Hanoi? Well, let's get into it, folks. So if you're new to my channel, folks, my name's Chris. I've been living in Vietnam as a foreigner, as an expat for almost 8 years now. I have quite a lot of experience. I've lived in Saigon for over 4 years. About 2 months ago, I moved up here to Da Nang. The main reason for that was to get away from the traffic, the heat, the noise of a big city, and to live, a slightly more relaxed lifestyle.
Okay, so he introduces himself. He's an expat, and based on the accent, he sounds British. So he's gonna see things from an expat point of view, but at the end of the day, it's gonna be from a British point of view, right? That's gonna be the predominant viewpoint, and so we gotta keep that in mind because everything else will follow. Okay.
Near the beach, and that's pro number one today, folks. So for me, is being able to live here by the ocean, and of course being able to do this, walk 5, 6, maybe even 10 if I'm feeling like it, kilometers every day on the beach is fantastic. Pro number one of the best things about living in Da Nang is accessibility to the beach.
Okay, so pro number one is accessibility to the beach. And seeing the video, I was kind of refreshed because you live here every day. You kind of take it for granted, but you get out once in a while, and then you're reminded that you live near paradise. So being reminded that and I live very near the beach, a few blocks away, and I can exercise just like he is doing in the video, just walk and do many things. So yeah, there's a point where, yeah, you've been doing it a lot, but like there's also a point where you need to remind yourself that you're living in front of the beach and you can do many things and you can make it as exciting as it needs to be. Of course, you're seeing the same things over and over again, but it's still at the beach, right? So it's always a good reminder not to take that for granted. And many people around the world would love to switch places with you, so it's a good reminder.
Being able to exercise every day without too much air pollution. What are some of the other pros of living in Da Nang? Well, it's a relatively small city and it's great for someone like me who loves to cycle. If you've been following my channel, folks, you can see that I tend to ride around on my e-bike. Most of my videos are done on my bicycle, electric bicycle, riding around, giving you commentary about wherever I am and my opinions on what's going on in Vietnam and around me, etc. But Da Nang's really great for that kind of lifestyle. Pretty much totally flat. Obviously there are mountains up there behind me, but I haven't ventured up there yet. But if you like exercising, walking, running, cycling, it's a great spot for that.
Okay, so one of the biggest things that drew me here to Da Nang, and mostly many expats, is the best balance, I would say. That's my description for it, is it has this great balance, right? So Da Nang is basically divided into two. You have the downtown that's inside the river and surrounded by mountains, right? That's where all the business and commerce are at. And then as soon as you cross the river, you have the beachy area. So that's where it's a little bit more laid back. There's more wide spaces. The roads are wider, bigger. The lanes of the highways are fatter, I would say. But it's that division because I operate in both. I work downtown where the hustle and bustle is, but I cross the bridge like the Dragon Bridge or Han Bridge. And then there's the beach where I live. And that's where the expat community is, like the different restaurants. You know, you can go local for Vietnamese, you can go a lot of Korean, French, whatever kind of food you can find in here. So yeah, I would have to say the biggest thing with Da Nang is the balance that you get. Because I've lived in a place where there was too much beach and it wasn't modern enough. And then I've lived, of course, in cities, you know, concrete jungles. It's just too much. So you don't want like an extreme of both. You don't want to live in too much of a beach and you don't want to live in concrete jungles. So I would say Da Nang kind of met me in the middle, and that's what I really like about this place. Okay, because like too much beach and not enough modernity is hard as well. Like you don't have Wi-Fi, phone signals, no electricity. You know, I've lived in places like those, and that can get kind of rough. I mean, the beach will get old really fast. Okay, so that's the good thing about here in Da Nang. If there's like if it's too much beach, you can go downtown, you know, and then once you get a good whiff of that, you can go back. Just that balance, that daily balance, especially when you live here. Okay.
And generally on the whole, it's a more healthier place. It feels more healthy. The air feels cleaner. It's not actually that great, the air. There is some air pollution here. It still hovers around 50 or 60 AQI, which isn't great, but it's still much better than the 150, 160 or 200 plus that you may typically see in Hanoi or Saigon.
Yeah, so the air pollution, so you got your cities, that's the main problem. And then when you go to like beachy cities with no cities, the air quality is good, but like I'm not too much of a... Da Nang is okay for me, and especially if you're near the beach, it's okay. Like I don't mind whatever air pollution it has. It's pretty much okay for me. I don't mind it at all. It's not a deal breaker for me or whatever. So yeah, but it's good to point out, I guess, for a lot of people that's important, but it's not as bad as like really bad places, and it's not as clear as like other places. Just again, as I mentioned, balance right down the middle. Okay.
Because it's a smaller city, there's quite a nice sense of community. So I've I've made some good friends here from all over the world, which is really cool. And you know, compared to when I lived in Saigon, I was kind of in my apartment, so much traffic, so much noise, you just don't tend to go out so much. Yes, I had a nice apartment there and I like staying there, but I think here, you know, it's more kind of feeling to go out and do things and to meet people, and I think that's important. And you know, it's good to lead a balanced life and get out and meet people.
Okay, so I lived in Saigon for a while, and it's true what he's saying. Basically, the noise pollution is going to be motorcycles the whole day. And I noticed that you really only get a break from the noise during Sundays. Like, it's exceptionally quiet. You'll go for hours without hearing a motorcycle honk or, you know, motorcycle engine, whatever. But in Da Nang, there's a lot more gaps into the noise, you know. You'll go for certain periods where you don't hear anything. And I appreciate that about Da Nang. And just him mentioning Saigon, I remember immediately is the motorcycle noise and meet. Oh, you know what I'm saying? It's like living with Roadrunner or something. But yeah, that's a big thing that he's pointing out. It's very important.
And I've been able to do that in Da Nang and meet some great folks, which is cool. That could potentially be a negative for some people though. Small town feel, everybody knows everybody else. You know, a lot of expats here, you tend to get to know a lot of the foreigners here especially, and you know, not everyone likes that, so something to bear in mind.
Okay, so when it comes to interacting with the expat community, I've always operated under the term familiarity breeds contempt. And so what I do is I get to know them, but I don't like spend or hang out as much, because that's what I'm weary of, and vice versa as well. It's like the more they get to know me, the more, you know, they might get irritated and stuff. And so that's just my high school teacher taught me a term called respective distance. And so on the one side, that's good because I don't create enemies or I don't annoy, irritate people. But on the bad side, I don't really like build relationships with them, and you know, you don't know who you can call in an emergency. I mean, you have an idea, but like, it's not like some of the people I know where the friendships become deep and they really help each other out. But at the same time, they also get into each other's nerves, and there's some violence even. Sometimes people fight, the expats do, and I don't know if I'm up for that. So I'd rather just keep the peace, stick to myself, stick to, you know, my little circle of friends that I, you know, trust and respect, and that's pretty much it. I don't expand my circle really, just because out of that fear that familiarity breeds contempt. So I would say I'm less open to meeting a lot of people, but I have no problem meeting people. It's just that I'm very selective with who I make friends with.
So what are the negatives of living here up in Da Nang? Well, extreme weather is definitely one of them. So for example, we've had sort of 28, 29 degrees, and then it's dipped back down to 19, 20, maybe 21 today. But it's kind of this time of year, going into March, the weather's kind of all over the place, and it's rainy, windy one day and it's sunny the next. It's kind of like a city of extremes. And when you get into June, July, that sort of time, you're looking at 34, 35 degrees every single day. It gets scorching hot, so that's particularly unbearable. Also, winter time here, from say October-ish through to start of February. Again, pretty wet, windy, typhoon season. So talking to my friends here, a lot of them actually move out. Like some of them move to Thailand. If they're working remotely, they will move to somewhere else like Thailand during those months, and then just come back maybe start of February for 4 or 5 months, catch a sweet spot in the weather, and then move on to somewhere else.
Okay, so he talks about two things: the extreme weather here in Da Nang, and then the expat community that moves in and out and stuff, the digital nomads and stuff. And so number one is the extreme heat is like unbearable, and because I take the motorcycle and it just scorches up on your arm and stuff. So what I do is I have a handy hoodie, the one with a zipper in the middle, and I make sure it's like really thin. And so that kind of helps you out. If it's too cold, you can wear that. If it's too hot, you can wear that to protect you from the rays of the sun. Other than that, bringing umbrellas and stuff like that. It's not really helpful, or it's very inconvenient. But just I have two or three really good hoodies, and sometimes I accept the fact that I might lose them. But I have like I would say when the season is rainy, I have like a waterproof hoodie, and then I have a general purpose hoodie where I use it for the heat and for the cold. But yeah, sometimes it can be too hot. You can't do anything outside. But sometimes also it can rain and you don't want to go outside. So that happens a lot here, the extreme weather. Um, I don't know. We just stay at home when it's hot, and we also stay at home when it's really raining. But everything else, we can still get by. You can grab car if you like, if you really don't want to drive or you don't want to be bothered. I think that's what we do to like adjust to the weather. If we have to go somewhere important, we take a grab car, and for everything else, we just use our own motorcycles here. So I mean, I'm talking about my immediate friends, okay, the expats here. The locals just use the motorcycles for everything, so they're used to it. It's how they grew up. It's very normal for them. For me, it's more of the I really hate the extreme rain because things can get slippery. That's what I'm more weary of. And then you have to wear a poncho, especially during the rainy season. That's a hassle. But that's about it, basically. I tend to go outside, make plans after 4 p.m. because right now it's a bit sunny and it's too sunny for me in the afternoon. So it's like I have this window. It's like I do things like 8 to 12 in the morning or 4 in the afternoon. That's like you have to have like that Spanish break, but here it's like an extended break because of the weather. But other than that, it's pretty okay. Like,
So I think Da Nang really has the same kind of negative issues that you would experience throughout Vietnam. So things like trash, noise, and pollution are big ones. Dangerous roads and bad driving is a
okay, so he talks about the trash, dangerous roads. Okay, so let's talk about the trash. It's true. You see trash everywhere here, but I have two vantage points on that. Number one, it's not as trashy as other countries I've been to. Like I've lived in countries where it's like trash all over, like every corner of your eye, you see it. Here it's you get breaks from that. You'll see it, but then you'll get a break. Do I wish it was cleaner? Yeah, but this isn't Japan. Not every country can be Japan. I just wish people would make more of an effort to like either dispose of their trash really well, or maybe the government can do a better job of like picking it up. But it's no big deal. Second, so I've seen or I lived in countries where there's the beach and there's no trash and it's pristine, but it's either too commercial, that place, like they're doing it for commercial purposes, or there's absolutely nothing on that place, like not even electricity or Wi-Fi or phone signal, but the beach is nice, it's clean. So for me, I actually like the trash on the beach here because of I think it's still balanced. Like it's not too much. For me, it's organic. You know what I mean? Like that's the way people have lived. And it's not to the point where a specific. I'm thinking of this one country where I lived in. I'm not gonna name it, of course, but there was just trash everywhere. People would get sick and stuff. And so it's just people need to just be more mindful of where to dispose their garbage. But I'm afraid if it gets to that point, then things are gonna get more expensive here. I don't know. I'm iffy about it. I'm thinking Singapore, Japan, yeah, clean, but not the cheapest countries in the world. So there's always a price for that, right? There's always a price for maintenance and modernity and cleanliness. It's not free, although we prefer it. We prefer those things, hygiene and cleanliness and all that. But in my experience, it's never free. You're paying for that one way or the other, right?
real thing here. I'm particularly subject to it because I ride a bicycle, so I go around the city on my bicycle, and it's as if I don't exist. Driving is particularly bad here, especially car drivers. my Vietnamese friend was actually telling me that there's a lot of new money, like nouveau riche here. People have made a lot of money in the last 10, 12 years from property. One of the first things people do when they get a little bit of money here is go out and buy a car, because a car is very much a status symbol here in Vietnam. Of course, they don't tend to have much driver training at all here, if any, I believe. And any that they do have is kind of off-road on private land, so you're just unleashed onto the road and it's just chaos. So
Okay, this is interesting for me. This is new information in terms of the new rich, right? So what happens here is these roads are dangerous for foreigners because people, the locals, know how they drive. So you have to adjust to that. You have to see things from a local point of view. In the same way that if you took a Vietnamese person and you told them to go to the US and drive in the freeway or whatever, right? He'd be a danger in those roads as well because he doesn't know how things go, right? So here, what I'm saying is danger is a relative point of view because like it really depends. Like, so you have to see things from their point of view. The biggest thing I learned here in motorcycles is they hate stopping. It's like the more it's like a mortal sin. It's like the number one enemy. So they will do everything not to stop, right? That's like the last resort, right? And so when you think about that point of view, then you kind of understand why drivers do what they do, why people in motorcycles, why they do what they do. And the most amazing thing I see in Vietnam is like on corners, they don't stop. Okay, so what I did was my first few months here, I took a lot of Grab Moto. I learned how to ride on a motorcycle as a passenger, and then I just went everywhere and I started learning the routes, and then I started to learn the flow of the traffic, right? And then the fourth thing I would observe is I would pretend to be the driver, the Grab driver. I would think like him, like, okay, what would he do in this scenario, or how would he react here and there, and what can you get away with, what can you not get away with. So those first 3-4 months I just took Grab Moto every day, and then that's when I purchased my motorcycle here. But so by the time I went on the motorcycle, I knew how the roads worked, and of course I added the input from my friends, from my expat friends. I've never really biked around the city. I've never biked here at all, actually, so I wouldn't know what it's like. But yeah, that's my advice to people starting out here. Take a lot of Grab, understand, and like think like them. Don't think like how you drive, and don't think that how you drive is the universal way to drive. You know, that's how you drive in your place, but here you have to think about how they drive in their place. And to be honest with you, I don't, well, yeah, they're not exactly the safest drivers, but there's levels to that, right? So for example, if you go to Saigon, the drivers will be a little bit more dangerous, and I consider the motorcycle drivers here in Da Nang to be actually safer, and then they follow rules more. In Saigon, they just ran through traffic lights and everything, and that was so blatant. Here, one or two will do it, but not everybody, you know. So, and then I've lived in a country, we call the motorcycle drivers missiles, because they didn't stop. Like literally, like if they wouldn't even stop to stop the accident, like they would go into an accident, because exactly what it is, what a missile will never stop, right? And it's just once it's let go straight for the target. And that's how drivers drove in that country. So here they stop, more or less, you know. So yeah, but is it dangerous? I don't think I don't think so. I'm okay with it, and I know the rules of the road. Could it be improved? Yes, definitely. There's some safety things that can be improved, but more or less, I've known people here, they've lived 8 years, 7 years, they haven't met one accident. You actually will have police stoppage more than you would have an accident, right? So for example, in a year you get stopped by the police twice, but you have no accident. So for me, I think this part is relative. Yeah, primarily because I don't ride a bike here, drive a motorcycle, but then coming onto this country, I knew I had to think like them. I knew the road, I knew I had to know the rules of the road, right? So yeah, it's not so dangerous as it might seem. It's pretty okay. It's relative. It depends really.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad I got reasonable health insurance. But fingers crossed, I won't have to use it anytime soon. So as I mentioned, noise pollution is a real issue generally in Vietnam. If you're someone who's sensitive to noise, which I must admit, it's really tricky to be able to find a quiet place to live. There's a lot of construction everywhere, and the construction doesn't really adhere to any timings throughout the day. 7 days a week, 6 a.m. to 8 p.m., 9 p.m. But not just construction noise. You've got a lot of karaoke, especially here in Da Nang. It seems to have a more local feel, similar to the Mekong, where it's just street karaoke all the time, which is kind of funny at first, but then it gets a little bit annoying after a while. Roosters and dogs, it's ubiquitous again in Vietnam. People keep roosters everywhere on the streets outside their house, on their balconies. Same with dogs, like barking dogs are a real annoyance here because it's not really the dogs.
Okay, so there's a lot of things that was said here, and I wanna talk about that. Yeah, that's my main problem here is the noise pollution, and there's like at least 4 different kinds of noise pollution. So you have the first one, which is construction, and then you have the karaoke, and then you have the vendors, and then you have the motorcycle noise. All right. So what happens is the construction, because everywhere there's construction around, but if you live in tourist areas, in a touristic area, it's not as noisy. The animals he was mentioning, the roosters and the dogs, we don't have that here because I live in a touristy area, so that reality doesn't exist for me. A lot of people, I don't know where this guy lives, but obviously he lives in a very local area where people are just living with dogs and cats, and maybe there's a farm nearby or something. But no, that won't happen here where I live. So a lot of your experience will really depend on where you live. What the karaoke, we don't have that here either. There's not a lot of locals where I live. Sure, there's some locals, but there's also a lot of expats, so not a lot of karaoke. You will come across that when you're at the beach, especially at night. People are partying, drinking, celebrating, And the only question I have with that is I was telling my friend, if you sing karaoke, why do you have to put it to blast it for everyone to hear? Why can't you just put it up in such a way where, your friends can hear you, but not the whole city, you know what I mean? And if you sing bad, then now everybody knows that you sing bad. Why can't you just keep it to yourself, But yeah, no, that happens here once in a while. There's some locals here where I live, and so when it does happen, you understand it, but it doesn't happen as often as it would if I lived in more locally places, For me, the most annoying thing is the bun bao. It's like this guy on a motorcycle and he's selling pork buns, and it's got charcoal on it and whatever, and it's got a recording that just go bun bao, bun bao, bun bao, and it's so noisy, right? And as he said, at first it's kind of cute because I'm like, oh wow, what a great way to do business, that's just modern. I thought it was really cool, but then after a while, it's like we live on the 3rd floor, and I'm recording videos, and the bun bao sound is louder than me talking to the camera. I would have online lessons, cannot be heard. TV can't be heard. It's literally a block away you can hear it, right? And I'm on the 3rd floor. Can you just imagine if you were on the 1st floor? And what I don't like about it is there's no regulation. The police didn't come in and say, okay, you gotta put down maximum volume of that thing is this. No, he just put it up as high as he could for everyone to hear. And it's I guess it would be okay until 10 o'clock, but 11, 12, 1, 2 a.m. it gets a bit too much. It's like mental torture. So that would be my main con here, main complaint is like really the specifically that bun bow sound, and it's just really annoying. And it's not just annoying, but it keeps you from being productive. Like right now I'm shooting this video, I'm like afraid like some bun bow guy might cross, or you would shoot videos in the morning, not at night, because they usually go at night, stuff like that. It's just annoying, the noise pollution, and I wish it was regulated by the government. I wish the police would come in and say, hey, that's too loud. Just like here, I have friends that are bar owners, right? And like there's certain time you can't be too loud. I think like 12 o'clock or whatever, or when you're too noisy, they come in and say, hey, you're too noisy. I wish they would do that with locals as well, and their gadgets and the vendors and their sound machines and stuff, right? Or you can count in the karaoke, where the government can say, hey, that's a little bit too loud, let's dial it down a little bit. That's the only thing I wish that would change here in Da Nang so far, right? But everything else is pretty good.
Oh, but people just don't walk dogs here. I never see anybody, walking a dog. Exercising a dog seems to be a foreign concept.
Yeah, so he's right. First of all, I haven't seen a local walk a dog here. But second, that's a very first world kind of thing. And in third world countries in general, you don't walk dogs unless, the dog is very expensive, or the owner is pretty rich and very familiar with dogs. But again, this is, I think, a very first world and even a second world concept. But in the third world, people will not walk dogs at all, and they're not treated as highly as they should be, right? And you just have to accept that. Matter of fact, I think here in Vietnam they eat dogs, or was that in Cambodia? I'm not sure, but it's a delicacy. So that kind of shows you how dogs are seen in this country, okay?
And dogs are just kind of used to, I don't know what they're used for. They're just kind of tied up or left on balconies for 10 hours. And of course they're going to be frustrated, they're going to bark and make noise. And yeah, it's a little bit sad to see. I was thinking about going knocking on my neighbour's door, offering to take her dogs for a walk, give them a bit of pleasure, but I don't know. My friend said that's not a good idea. So there we go.
Very nice of this guy to offer his neighbor to walk the dog. But again, I need to point out that this highly depends on where you're living. Where I live, we don't have dogs barking. We don't have dogs running around. As I had said, it's more of an expat community. And I do see a lot of expats walking their dogs here. So really, this really depends on where you live. And this is not Da Nang in general. This is not Vietnam in general. It really depends where you live, right? So if you live in a more local area, you have to expect that. But then if you choose non-local areas, then you won't see, dogs like being noisy or just running around or wherever.
Another thing I've noticed living here is it's kind of not really a con, not really a pro, just kind of in the middle, I suppose. It's very much a cash city. So yes, you can use card in the hotels and bigger restaurants, but most of the smaller restaurants, most of the smaller shops, they only want cash. Or you can do bank transfer. If, like me, you've got a local Vietnamese bank account, you can easily just do bank transfer. But most tourists obviously don't have that, and they have to pay in cash. And the demographic of tourists here at the moment is Korean. There's a lot of Koreans and Indians, and Koreans typically like to tap to pay with their phones. I've sat in many restaurants and a couple of bars over the past couple of months, and I've seen quite big arguments. People arguing using Google Translate, let's just say, and then having to go into a taxi, go to an ATM to get money because the restaurant only accepts cash. And this is like some of the quite big restaurants.
Okay, that one was quite interesting to me. So for my first question is, when was this video made? As far as I know, it was February of this year. So my experience has been the complete opposite. I mean, I buy coffee here every day. It's 15,000 dong, Cafe Denda. And they accept cash. I mean, they accept QR codes, right? The smallest vendor will accept QR code payments. And if you can pay via QR code, you're good to go. I've gone for months here without cash. Once in a while, they accept it. I can't even remember the last time. I do keep cash because sometimes it's just more convenient than busting out your phone. Especially, it depends on the scenario where you are. But generally, man, they accept QR digital payments here all over. So I'm not, and I choose the app. So I have bank accounts in 4 countries. And so I kind of even choose what country to pay from. Like, okay, will this be this one account or this country? And then I'm thinking of the rates and everything. So this is really not true. Especially in big places, as he was saying, I don't know where this guy goes again, but I have not encountered a place where it's cash only. There must be some. It's been so long ago that I can't remember, and that just tells you how much they accept digital payments here, just my cell phone. So I don't know. This is not true for me. Maybe it is for him. I'm sure it is. Just not for me.
As well, so if you're gonna come here, guys, be prepared. You can get cash at a gold shop, and don't exchange cash in your home country. Bring euros, pounds, dollars here and exchange it here, because we get a much better rate inside.
Yeah. So what I do when I travel is, as soon as I arrive, I ask, do you accept cash, or do you accept card, or do you accept digital payments, right? I clarify that as soon as I get there to avoid this kind of dilemma. That's what I do when I'm traveling. But here, it hasn't been a problem because I don't even speak Vietnamese. And I don't ask them, hey, do you accept digital payments or credit card, or is it cash? Like, I've never had to ask here in my 1 year. So this is very strange for me.
Here is the country. Some nice villas here as I walk further south up towards Hoi An along Mei Kay Beach.
Okay, so this part, he is at an area where there's like some villas, it's like high end part of Da Nang. But like what I find interesting here is, like, if you see it here, it's open, right? And anyone can just come in. So that kind of describes you the security of Da Nang, because in some countries this would be like walled up, gated, make sure the intruders can't come in. But the mere fact that this community is very open, it completely describes to you, the safety of Da Nang, right? And as you can see, there's a little tiny bunch of steps go straight onto the beach. If you think about it, anyone can come, a fisherman can come in and go inside the villas. But the mere fact that everything is open, I think it describes to you the safety of the city of Da Nang.
I mean, this is lovely. Having the beach almost to myself this time of day. Nobody else around. So I'm going to end on a positive note today, folks, as I normally try to do. So almost 3 months ago, when I made the decision to come to Da Nang from Saigon, if I had my time again, would I have stayed in Saigon? No, I definitely wouldn't. I still think Da Nang is a great spot. It has great potential. If you like smaller town living, you're willing to put up with some perhaps minor inconveniences. And if you know Vietnam already and you know how things flow here, how things work, then it's fine. If you're new to Vietnam and you're expecting Miami Beach or Dubai, something like that, no, it's definitely not going to be for you. But like I said, if you know Vietnam, you know things move at a slow pace, you can take your time, settle in, then yeah, I would definitely recommend it. I'd also say, if you are into healthier living, if you like to be, by the ocean, be able to exercise outside every day, on the beach, yeah, it's a great spot. So take it easy, folks. Thanks for watching.
Yeah, so one of the biggest reasons why I moved to Da Nang was I had to get healthier. I had to improve my body. And what he doesn't mention is you see the beach right there and you can exercise, right? But near the beach, there are a few gyms 2 or 3 blocks away that you can exercise in. So it's very, for me, it's very efficient. It's very effective. So you can work out at the gym, and then afterwards you can go on the beach, or you can go jog on the beach first and then go to the gym. So like that's one of the biggest things for me. And yeah, when you're traveling, don't bring your first world into a third world, and vice versa, man. Don't be in third world country thinking the first world, or first world country thinking third world. It's just you, where you are, wherever in the world you are, be there, okay?
Have a great day, wherever you are in the world. See you soon.
Okay, overall, this was a great video, I think, but I don't think he covered the most important parts of the pros and cons of living in Da Nang. And this is like, I'm gonna get more in depth, right? So basically the pros is like living near the beach, the good balance of like modernity and beach, and then the safety of the place, the kindness of the Da Nang people. They're really awesome. But then the cons, he fails to mention, number one here is you have to have money to come here. If not, you have to have a source of money to come here. So that's gonna be teaching, mostly for foreigners, teaching English. If you don't have that experience, or if you come from Hanoi or Saigon where they pay a lot for teachers, that's not the reality here. You're gonna get paid less because it is a province. So number one here is you have to have money. And my friends here, my expat friends, that's some of their problem. Like some of them don't have money, so it's either you've got to find the source, you have to be a musician, professor, engineer, I don't know what, but you got to be a professional here in terms of you have to make money. If not, you have to bring your own money, or you have to earn money from overseas, from a first world country. And the second biggest problem here is the visa. You have to do visa runs, and recently there's been an update. It's going to be every 3 months, so that's a big help. But right now, those are the two biggest problems of expat people here: money and visas, right? And that's solved like if you come from a first world country and then you marry a Vietnamese, both your problems are solved. You know, you earn first world, or you have first world money, and you're living in a third world country, and then you have papers because you're married to a local. That solves a lot of problems, right? But not everyone's like that. And so these are the things that you have to come in here. You have to think about your visa, you have to think about money. If you cannot do that on a consistent basis, it will be very hard to live here for 1 year, okay? I got fortunate, I got lucky. I was able to find a job here that took care of my papers. It's in a university, and I'm teaching, making money, and enjoying the place. I don't have to worry about my visa. They took care of that as well. So that is the ideal scenario, and that's what you want to think about before you move here to Da Nang, okay? Because that's what many expat problems are. If you can't find love here, if you can't get married to a local, everything else might be a problem in terms of like visa, local connections, you know, making money and everything. So just a heads up. Okay, so that's been my reaction to Expat Nam, living here in Da Nang. I hope you liked it, and click like and subscribe. Most importantly, share the video if it helps you. Once again, this is your guy Rai, coming at you from Da Nang. Peace out, yo.